So the idea that Sheldon Lettich came up with the story, that he got it from us riding around in a pickup truck, is absolute rubbish. And all the evidence points to it and proves it.
Hey guys, in today's video we're going to give you the origin behind the film Bloodsport, starting with Frank Dux in that Black Belt magazine article from 1980, the time he met Sheldon Lettich, their relationship, some history with that, and then also by the end of the video he's going to share an amusing tale, a confrontation he had with Jean-Claude Van Damme in Hong Kong when they were shooting Bloodsport. I do want to preface the video, by the way, so this is not to make Frank Dux look good or Sheldon Lettich to look bad. This is just sharing some stuff, talking about the origin behind the film Bloodsport, working with Sheldon, and some other things. So again, the video, it is what it is. This is Frank's side. I've long said I wanted to get his side on multiple things, and I've done a series of videos with him already. And I'm happy that he's sharing this origin behind the film Bloodsport.
And you want to be the best reporter you can be, right?
Well, I'm trying to. I mean, that's why I like to get multiple sides. It just seems more fair, and it's not pushing a narrative like the mainstream media. I think hearing both sides, multiple sides, that's how we get closer to the truth.
Well, I'm just trying to be the best I can be.
Speaking about Frank Dux trying to be the best that he can be, one complaint is, where's the evidence? Where's the proof? Well, in this video, we got some pretty interesting stuff that we're going to share, emails, documents, etc. So hopefully you guys enjoy that. Anyway, if you appreciate the effort, because these videos take a long time to put together, if you appreciate that effort, if you like this kind of content, please help support the channel by hitting the like button, subscribing, and sharing this video. And by the way, check me out on Instagram. I'm really starting to get some momentum there, so join that because I'm going to give you fitness and martial arts related tips.
I didn't even want to do the Black Belt article.
Oh yeah, that wasn't your idea. You didn't want anything to do.
No, they chased me for like 6 months, and finally I told John Stewart, okay, I'll I talked to the Black Dragons. They said, well, Frank, we want you to do the article, and I said, okay, I'll do it, because they wanted to bring it to the forefront. They wanted to, again, monetize it, turn it into commercial enterprise. That's certain individuals within the organization wanted to do that. Michael Felkoff, to be exact. And so they provided the footage. They took clips of the footage. They put it in the magazine. They spoke to other Kumite fighters like David German at the time, James Heydrich. I mean, James, my gosh, James used to throw guys off the roof. We used to have matches in San Francisco. Jeez. And because of the betting involved, I mean, if you lost, you were thrown off the roof. That way they
how
knew
high of a roof? Like, did these people die or something?
4 stories.
How high?
About 3 to 4 stories.
Sometimes. So they would die, right?
No, they end up with broken. No, not all. It's. Let me tell you something. These guys know how to throw you off a roof, without dying. If you don't land on your head, they kind of like. It's more like a jump.
Okay. Let me ask you this, Frank. Let me ask you this.
Although I'll be honest with you, I take it back. I'm laughing about it because it's a nervous laugh, because I do recall one guy being thrown to his death. Jeez. But that's the kind of stuff that happened in this world. Remember, this is not a.
It's not a sport, right?
It's really interesting. It's a paradox, because on one hand you have the fighters like myself who are really fighting in this event for the right reasons. But then you have the people who are kind of running it for the wrong reasons.
Let me ask you this. Oh, no, go ahead if you want to expand on that.
No. So they're kind of running it for the wrong reasons. And gambling is a big part of their income. Mm-hmm. And we were their fighting dogs. And that's where the term Bloodsport comes from. It comes from me looking at that. And that's why I said I used the frame Bloodsport. I didn't refer to Kumite as Kumite. I referred to it as Bloodsport. That's how it got its name. When I first told the story to Black Belt magazine, they wrote it up, in fact, Kumite, a learning experience. I didn't use the word Bloodsport to them because I was trying to be as respectful as I could. But when it came time to looking at it and going, this could make for a good movie, I better protect myself on it. So I took Bloodsport to its original concrete form of treatment in a screenplay. I'm the first one to do that. I registered under the title Return of the Ninja because it was a homage to my instructor, who is a ninja per se, okay, in the sense of how the word is used, not that it's the title, who came to the coming to the Kumite. When Canon Films in '81 approached me about helping them do a film called Enter the Ninja, I realized quickly, well, I can't be using that as a title because they're going to want Return of the Ninja, and I want to pitch this to them. Okay. So I ended up with my attorney, Michael B. Frankel, and a producer by the name of Peter Deal, and the story was changed. The title was changed to Bloodsport. They took it to the American film market. It's written up at the American film market in 1981, I think it is.
Here's a letter provided by Frank Dux to me. It's dated November 10th, 2020. It's from Peter Dial to Frank Dux' lawyer, Michael Frankel. It says, "My best recollection about 1982-83 was that we were packaging projects to take to the American film market. We had several feature films, including one about horse racing, a horror slasher film, and the one most memorable, Bloodsport, the story by Frank Dux about his winning the Kumite. Because it went on to become an iconic film and started a friendship with Frank Dux. At the AFM, we had many meetings with studio representatives from the majors, the mini-majors, and independent film companies to pitch our various projects. I remember that several companies showed interest in Bloodsport, including Vestron, where I thought we were going to strike a deal. Sincerely, Peter Dial."
So the idea that Sheldon Lettich came up with the story, that he got it from us riding around in a pickup truck, is absolute rubbish. And all the evidence points to it and proves it, including his own contract where it says he was to revise a screenplay. He was being hired for it.
Real quick, Frank.
So the producers bought it for him.
As far as that contract goes, this is from Mark DeSalle. It's dated June 15th, 1985. It's made out to Mr. Sheldon Lettich. So part 1 of the writing services section says, "You shall render such services as we require to write and revise an original screenplay based upon the life story of Frank Dux, the rights to which we own and which we assign to you for this writing assignment entitled Bloodsport, consisting of a first draft screenplay and one set of revisions thereto, and a final draft screenplay or polish based thereon, suitable for production of a feature-length theatrical motion picture intended initially for a theatrical exhibition in the United States." So the part Frank Dux says about that the company or Mark DeSalle already owned the rights to Frank Dux' real-life story, that part's true. As far as the part in the contract where it says to write an original screenplay based on the life story of Frank Dux, that's where things get really interesting.
Sheldon has to create this image of this being a creative work by him. Otherwise, the truth of the matter is, he's a glorified stenographer for Bloodsport. Because the characters all came from me. I had my original treatment screenplay, and when he was using me as a source, I was using that and relaying those story elements to him, which he bargained away from me. And all the evidence proves that.
As far as the evidence goes, Frank shared the original first draft of the screenplay to Bloodsport. Written on it, he wrote, "To Gordon, my martial arts brother and friend for life, enjoy. This is the original script adapted from my own. Signed, Frank Dux." Also on this original first draft copy of the Bloodsport script, Mark DeSalle wrote, "To Frank, all the best." Signed, Mark DeSalle. Further evidence that Frank shared with me, here's some letters from Mike Frankel, Frank's lawyer, also Sheldon's at the time. He wrote, "Dear Sheldon, you seem to forget about Alpha Deuce and Bloodsport and you in 84-85 bargaining with Frank for a written buy credit on the screenplay you were hired for by DeSalle. And Frank had the limited life rights contract with DeSalle by saying to me and Frank as you were editing Firebase short, that is my price to bring in DeSalle's money. You had story discussions about Bloodsport in front of me way before you filmed the Firebase short. I have always said you are entitled to that credit on the screenplay, but not on the underlying life rights. You were only allowed on a work for hire to write on the material that DeSalle licensed from Frank." Another email shared to me, written by Mike Frankel. He says, "Sheldon, your contract says you were a work made for hire. Therefore, by DeSalle license, you were only authorized in your contract to write about true incidents in Frank's life. Otherwise, you were in breach of contract, as was DeSalle. That is why we had to modify the contract with Canon, because I threatened to sue them over the theft of the sword in the film, which according to Frank Dux never actually happened in real life."
I wasn't going to steal it.
To find out how Frank Dux really did meet Senzo Tanaka, check out a previous video I did with him. I'll link it in the description below. Also in that email, Mike writes, Sheldon, you did not write Bloodsport from a conversation with Frank. He had a full story that was shown to other people in the industry before you, and he found to sell. Also, according to your contract, you had the license to write about true incidents in Frank's life that he would have to share with you. I am too sick to deal with both of your bullshit. You had an absolute right to write the script and get written by credit. I was there when you agreed upon that, rather than the original agreement to co-write the script with Frank, as you did with Alpha Deuce, as your compensation for bringing in money. If you guys want to dig deeper into that, see the documentation, it's all written up in a nice article from the Art Voice. It's posted on the Frank Dux Bloodsport website. I'll link it in the description below. When did you and Sheldon Lettich meet?
We met approximately, I'd say, at the end of 1982.
So real quick, though, you're saying you already wrote Bloodsport before you met him, but it was called, like, Revenge of the Ninja?
Return of the Ninja.
Sorry, Return of the Ninja.
Yeah, and I even sent you last night, if you have a chance to go through your things, I sent you the WGA registration form, and I even sent you a letter of inquiry from my attorney to Peter Deal, if he remembers, if he could provide testimony to what was happening and how that blood sport came from me. And you have that letter as well that proves that I'm telling the truth here.
But Sheldon did have some association with Bloodsport, right?
We were co-writers on Bloodsport.
So you guys did write the actual screenplay together.
What happened with me and Sheldon is, we had been writing a number of screenplays together.
There's no denying that Sheldon Lettich and Frank Dux were writing partners. Sheldon Lettich even told me some of the things that they wrote together. Here's two projects, for example, that were registered. This one, called The Naked Kill by Sheldon Lettich and Frank Dux, is dated March of 1983. And here's another one called Alpha Deuce Story, also by Sheldon Lettich and Frank Dux, dated December of 1984.
When he wanted to be a director, he did a film called Firefight.
Okay.
I helped pay for Firefight. I helped him in Firefight.
Yeah, he actually mentioned that, sure.
Okay.
Which is actually, he even put up a little bit of money for me to make this movie.
He wouldn't have had Firefight if it wasn't for my participation and all the contacts I already had in Hollywood through Hubie Kearns, who's a Stuntman Hall of Famer, who taught me filmmaking.
Oh, interesting.
And in fact, so much so that Jacob Bressler, there's an interview out there with Jacob Bressler and myself on a radio show where Jacob comes out and says he was going to take a baseball bat to Sheldon because of the way he was treated. Oh, yeah.
My agreement was, I'm a producer in the show. I did all the work for free. I brought this guy on.
Yeah.
So I said, so you know what? I'm walking off the show, with all the respect. And I told Frank, I'm walking off the show, but my fee is going to be $960. And the guy says, well, you signed a contract, there's deferment, no pay. I said, no pay, I will show up to your office and we'll talk then. And if it wasn't for Sensei Frank that was there, he said, come on, Sensei Jacob. I was ready to go there like the good old Hollywood. And
Jacob would have smacked him around.
with a baseball bat,
I mean, he was
take care of his BMW that he had.
Not a baseball bat. You just give him a good shin kick.
I talked to Frank, and of course, because he introduced me to the guy, I kind of whined and bitched at him, and he ended up paying the money for that guy.
Oh, wow.
So I walked away from the show. I never got a credit, never got nothing. That show actually started Sheldon's life as a director. And from there, he wanted to take the script with Frank, and made Bloodsport.
The way he was treated by him, and he got all this work out of Jacob for arranging for the DP, and these are people doing it on gratis, not paying for it, to help him, and they're doing it as a favor to Jacob. Okay, John Stewart, who was I think it's John Stewart, his name. He was the stunt coordinator for the short, and there was a lot of stunts in it, explosions, what have you, in the making of this short film called Firefight. I didn't want to be in it. Sheldon says, "Oh, I wanted to be an actor." No.
Well, that's what he was trying to pursue.
Oh, he wanted to be an actor.
Oh, he thought he had movie star looks.
Okay.
He thought back then he looked kind of like Tom Selleck.
I mean, with that
resemblance.
mustache, sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
with the stash, right, right.
Oh, so
Just
you
yeah.
never wanted to be an actor?
No, if I did, there'd be headshots of me and I would have had an agent. Okay, how hard would it be to get an acting agent? Come on, with a movie on my life, not hard at all. All right, I never wanted to be an actor. That's a lie. One of many that he spins. And when we did this, and I was present, Sheldon promised Jacob that he could be the producer on it because he was trying to build line producer credits for himself for his own career. That's why he agreed to do this. He had his own casting company. He called BJ's Casting at the time. Sheldon promised it to him, but when the time came, and Jacob had even arranged for him to meet another producer by the name of Peter DeBerre, who became real friendly with Sheldon. Well, lo and behold, he's now not letting Jacob be the producer on it. He's taking his credit away. And so Jacob said, hey, I want to get paid then for my services, And Sheldon's, well, I'm not paying you. I'm not giving you credit. And that's when Jacob, being a very serious guy, and he was my student, by the way, the only reason Sheldon didn't end up in a hospital bed, or missing is because I was able to talk to Jacob and say, hey, let me take care of this. And out of my own money, I mean, out of my own heart, I used my own money, not Sheldon, and Jacob will tell you, to pay him the salary that Sheldon owed Jacob for his services, to put everything at rest, to keep the peace. Because, when I ended up ruining my kneecap on that shoot, and I had to be put in a cast, and he plays it off like I'm faking it or something. My friggin' knee was in a cast. What's wrong with you? Are you kidding me?
Well, that's interesting. So with the whole Sheldon Lettich thing, though, but
we ended up. Let me tell you something. Go back more on what happened in the process. So I had the whole idea of how Bloodsport really came about is we did Firefight. That's why I'm mentioning this. I did all these things for Sheldon. Sheldon is in the editing bay editing Firefight, and he meets Mark DeSalle. Mark DeSalle says he wants to do a movie on kickboxing. Sheldon, in order to do a movie on kickboxing, he's not a martial artist. Mm-hmm. So he says, "Oh, I've got a writing partner, and he's this guy, and he does all these. He owns a martial arts school, and he knows kickboxing, and he's got trophies. Let's go meet him, and together we can write you your movie."
Okay.
So Mark DeSalle and him visit my studio, and Mark sees the Black Belt magazine article on the wall. Mm-hmm. He walks up to it and goes, "What's this?" And then I started telling him, well, I wrote a screenplay called Bloodsport. It's based on what this event is. And he goes, "That's way more interesting. I'm more interested in that."
I heard you can get killed at that Kumite.
Sure.
And then Sheldon got a little upset over that because he thought he was going to get cut out of the deal. Mm. But then he later kind of came back to me later and says, well, because you're going to be mentioned in it and you're going to get all this money from the choreography and you're going to get, all this money for this or that, I'm not getting enough to pay my bills. So, and I said to do this, and he's my contact, and therefore I'm going to end this. And he's doing this in front of our attorney, by the way, Mike Frankel, who's advising me and says, well, Frank, if you give up, you have to know, if you give up your credit for working on this with Sheldon and not writing it with him and not getting the credit from your former screenplay and treatment, says, I have to advise you, you're giving up a considerable amount of money because of all the residuals involved.
Yeah, sure.
Right? And I said, well, how about we work it where I get a percentage points on the net profits with Mark? I'll get it that way. He says, yeah, that sounds good. We could do that. And I said, okay, Sheldon, you're my friend. You need to build the credits, just like I helped you with Firefight. You take the sole credit for what essentially was my story and my screenplay that he reworked, okay? And he didn't take them per se, and I want to make this really clear and work from page to page from it. he sat down with me. We would go in the car, and he says, "Well, tell me about the characters. Tell me who the villain should be." I said, "Well, that would be Chong Li."
He's never been defeated. Holds awesome records, including the fastest KO.
And I would tell him the names of the different characters and who they were, and the idea of the Jackson Carrier was a composite, really, of Kurt Peterson, who's the Swedish Kyoko Shinkai champion at the time, who knocked out Dolph Lundgren and broke his jaw, from what I understand, and Rick Robinson, who was the first guy who fought in the Kumite, like I was telling you about, because he had that biker. He was a biker kind of guy at that time. He used to run with the poor boys out of Venice, and he was just very much like the Don Gibb character. I'll be honest with you. In those days,
Okay.
he then went to becoming talk about a metamorphosis. Oh my God, Rick went from being this kind of carefree biker type to this, prim and proper stockbroker. I mean,
That's funny.
it was just like a total flip side. And he really excelled in the traditional martial arts. He really went into the Japanese systems and became quite an expert in sword, and he became quite an expert in some of the Wally J's system. Like I said, he became one of Wally J's top black belts in jiu-jitsu as a result. Because, I have a sneaking suspicion, because when he was at the Kumite, he ended up getting choked out. Being a kung fu guy, not expecting that. So that's kind of like my personal take on it.
But going back real quick to Sheldon, so how much did he actually contribute? I mean,
Sheldon didn't really contribute much of anything. I'll be honestly in Bloodsport, and this is why I'm really getting hurt. I allowed him for years. I didn't do anything to harm him in any shape or form, or allow that. But the reality is, he didn't do much of anything. He ended up taking my script, or what I told him the script was, and what have you, and totally mucked it up. I mean, really mucked it up. We ended up with 4 different villains. It read more like a James Bond Rambo movie than it did the Kumite.
so Frank Dux did share with me the first draft revised of Bloodsport, written by Sheldon Lettich, dated November 18th, 1985. So, for example, on page 57, it reads, Frank begins rappelling down the side of a building, Australian style, face first, when he suddenly notices armed figures popping out of a couple of the windows. Frank blasts away with the Uzi, the bullets strike home, and the armed figures tumble out of the windows to their deaths. He continues his rapid descent down the side of the building. Okay, so I mean, I guess it does kind of read like a James Bond or Rambo film, like Frank says. Definitely not the Bloodsport we've all watched.
I mean, I could show you the original screenplay, and you're going to go, this is not Bloodsport. It's sort of like the Bloodsport event is kind of a partial thing in the movie. It's like, it's not the emphasis, okay? So they brought, Mark DeSalle saw that. He saw I was upset about it because I'd given Sheldon the room to kind of work with the film. I want to make that very clear. I gave him we worked together on the dialogue and all this stuff, and then he went off on his own in his own direction. Okay, I want to make that clear. And this is why he may have a real axe for me, and wanted to keep me off of everything after that, because I wanted to sound. So I looked at the screenplay he turned in, and it says by him, by the way, based on a true story. Mm-hmm. Okay, and I go, Mark, a lot of stuff I never did. I go, that's number one. And when you look at your screenplay, I go, I was getting ready to shut down the whole thing, because my agreement with DeSalle was, excuse me, I didn't give you the right to fictionalize my life. You have true life, you're bound to do it based on a true story, period. Okay? You have to work within certain parameters, all right? So Mark immediately said, give me an opportunity here. And he immediately found Christopher Cosby and Mel Friedman, brought them in. We sat down for about 4 hours. I hemmed out what was my story before, what it should look like. They went off, and they're really the writers of honestly, of Bloodsport, if you want to give credit to anybody.
So
they're the ones who
changed a lot. It reverted back to
what originally was
more like your original screenplay.
And my original was different in the way that from what Bloodsport was, because it was more like a combination of Lionheart and Bloodsport. it really starts off with me doing these simple matches, and then the character, he works sort of like does a couple of vigilante things in the movie. I mean, in my screenplay, and then he ends up going to this tournament. Okay, and he's being pursued by the police. That got changed to he's being pursued as a secret agent. You understand?
Yeah, real quick though, Frank. So the smaller fights before the tournament in your original screenplay, those fights, were they related to the Kumite, like, or not at all? They were Kumite matches, but like smaller local type things before.
They're smaller ones. It's sort of like imagine Lionheart. Here's a great example. Look at the film Lionheart.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, change some of the elements around, like the instructor and all that. Put that in there, and instead of the final fight of the tennis court, it's the Kumite.
Oh, so all part of that underground fighting network. Cynthia was part,
right.
and
how it culminates in the big event.
Okay, it's almost like qualifying rounds before you could even go to that tournament. In a way, it sounds like.
Yeah, and then in mine, it had, of course, a montage of all the different fighters. You have to fight for some minutes till you're finally going to get down to the two guys who got the most points, and they're going to fight.
Let me ask you this real quick.
Yeah.
I read the screenplay. I think it was the final one. Obviously, it's not exactly like the film. It's pretty damn close. So one of the big differences I noticed, though, is like the Kumite platform. As the fighters would advance in the movie, the platform would get higher to almost be the point where it was like they were fighting on a roof.
Right.
Now, did you guys film it that way or not?
No, we didn't film it that way.
We
didn't film it that way, but it was intended to be filmed that way. When we got to Hong Kong, there were set design problems, and
it seems like a pain.
How are we going to get the cameras up that high? So we decided to bring the roof down. So if you look at the stage in Bloodsport, it was a logistical problem for filming. So we actually lowered the roof scene as opposed to being up high. If you look at the movie, it's about 3 feet off the ground, 3 to 4 feet off the ground, and then surrounded by sand, and then it then becomes almost 8 inches off the ground. If you look at the movie where the platform's like,
yeah.
Okay, so it's that's kind of, and I could be wrong. I mean, I'm going by my memory, but we didn't go up high. The reason it went up high in the script is because it was sort of like I was saying, what happened with James Heydrich, and he can corroborate this for you. And that is that the fights would often end up on the roof. In fact, that's how Jean-Claude and me ended up almost getting in a fight on the rooftop of the Victoria Hotel.
Well,
we got into that story. We got into it over a fight scene in the choreography
for Bloodsport.
Working on Bloodsport. He was very.
So this was in Hong Kong. You guys were on a roof in Hong Kong.
Oh no, yeah. Well, let me tell you, we were Clearwater-based studios. We got into it over some choreography, and I said, "No, that'll never work," and no, we're not doing it that way. He got really upset. I'm a champion too, and blah blah blah. I said, "This is Kumite." I go, "Let's just keep it real."
What did you want to do?
It was some kind of fancy thing that it was a good movement. You could use it. Okay, I want to make that clear.
Yeah.
But it was the wrong pacing in the movie. See, a lot of people think you just throw everything out there and it all should look good. No, you have to really, when you do choreography, it is like writing music. I am not kidding you. It's like writing music. You better know when you're going to bring in your crescendo. You need to know when you have your highs, your lows, and how you manipulate the emotion of the person listening. And in this case, the person watching. Sure. And that's what I do. And that's why people haven't been able to copy what I do. That's why Jean-Claude has always brought me back when he was in trouble, because he knows I can do something that other people can't do. I know how to tap into people with that movement. And that's my strength as a choreographer. And it shows. I mean, it's an observable truth, period.
Yeah. Bloodsport and Lionheart for sure, man.
So that's what we really got into it over. It wasn't so much, is this real or not real? It was just, two creative minds getting into it. And I just reminded him, I'm the guy who fought it. I'm the guy who's the choreographer of this. Let me do my job. You do your job. You know what I mean? So we got into it, and he said, "I'll meet you at the Victoria Hotel. I'll show you how much of a champion I am, and blah blah blah." We'll
So he
see.
wanted to fight you. It sounds.
Oh yeah, and he says, "Let's see what this Kumite stuff is really all about." Right?
Okay.
Okay. So with those words, I walked out on the Victoria Hotel, and it had, if you look at the movie of Jean-Claude in the splits, in the distance is the Victoria Hotel. Okay. It's 2 towers, actually, 60 stories up in the air. And they had a awning on the very top of them going around the top, more of a decorative awning. Okay. And you had to walk on I-beam out to the awning, 60 stories in the air. So I walked out on the I-beam. I said, "You want to know what Kumite is about? We fight here." And he took a look, and he walked up to it, and I'll never forget it. He just cracked up. He just cracked up. He goes, "Frankie, you're crazy." I threw a jumping, spinning heel kick there. He saw that.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I did this, like, "Come on." He says, "Okay, I got dinner." And that was it. I got dinner.
I saw the look in his eyes. This guy is crazy. He's fucking crazy.
And we went off and we had a great dinner. That it wasn't a big altercation as people think it was. It was just, 2 guys. He was really concerned about his film, and this is his breakout, and he wanted the best possible thing. And I took his suggestions. He had some great suggestions in the choreography of the movie. It was his idea. I'll give him credit for dropping down and hitting the knees,
Okay.
at the end. That's Jean-Claude's
Oh, that's interesting. That was his idea.
ideas. It's a collaborative effort. And the one thing I think Jean-Claude appreciated about me in those days, at least, is I really knew how to bring out of him the best of him.
I'm pretty sure I know what Sheldon Lettich is thinking about Frank Dux.
He just loves taking credit.
And I'm just glad the film was made, because we all love it 30 years after the fact. So in the next video, we're going to dive deep into that whole topic. Basically, Frank Dux trained Jean-Claude Van Damme for 3 months before they shot Bloodsport. Frank Dux obviously choreographed the fights in Bloodsport, so we're going to talk all about that in the next video.